Hi, my name is Sabir Aleem, and I'm the host of The Wise View. The Wise View is a show that addresses community concerns. Those concerns are addressed by a group of men. Men who are actively involved in their community. Men who are seeking to bring about change within the community. Men who have no fear whatsoever of confronting those issues, because we know that if we don't make changes right now, that our communities will continue to deteriorate. Most importantly, you need to understand this. This show is straight from the hip, raw, uncut, no barriers, no restrictions. That which you will find in many other shows. But we're going to tell it like it is right here. And not only are we going to talk about those concerns, we're going to provide solutions. So see, me and my crew, we make it do what it do. Join us for The Wise View. Let's go. So today is November 19th, International Men's Day, and to all men all over the world, I extend to you a greeting of peace and blessings. International Men's Day has began back in February of 1992 by Professor Thomas Oster. It was a project that was reinitialized in 1999. And today it continues. For me, it seemed to gain more recognition in the past 2 years when the first event was held in Philadelphia. This year, however, there had not been enough recognition, which begs the question: Are we really trying to address the needs of men? We have an International Day that was celebrated in many other countries, and when you look at the conditions of many other countries versus the conditions here, right here in America, especially in Pennsylvania, mainly in Philadelphia, you ask the question: how far have we really come in addressing the needs of men? Just this morning I was watching the news, and the thing that stood out more than anything being reported, more than 100 inches of snow that they'll be getting up in New York, more than murders and all those things that take place on a daily basis that we get in the news. The thing that stood out the most for me today was a police raid on homes of fathers who were behind or failing to pay child support. Now these men, fathers, are being labeled as deadbeat dads, and society rides on those kinds of labels placed upon fathers who are actually in contempt of court. They're not failing as fathers necessarily, but they're failing to adhere to a court order. And that's the part that they don't tell you in the news. They just tell you these are deadbeat dads. These are men who are failing to provide for their children. And that's something that tugs on the heartstrings of all of us when you talk about being neglectful of your responsibilities to children. But are they being neglectful? Are they being neglectful of their children? Are they being neglectful of their responsibilities to their children? We don't know that. We don't know that. But when you watch television, when you watch all this other propaganda on this evil tube, it is depicting images of males, and specifically the images of men of color. It is projecting very negative images, and once you begin to project images repeatedly into one's mind, They begin to believe it, even themselves, that this is who we are. This is all we'll ever be. And then we have the mothers of the children of these fathers who also ride along with this whole bandwagon of deadbeat dads, when the reality of it is something happened in the relationship that caused it to fail. Somebody had to make a decision, whether it was a forced decision or whether it was a willful decision. A decision had to be made that y'all two couldn't do it together. And no pun intended. But you couldn't make it together as boyfriend and girlfriend, as husband and wife, whatever it is that you called yourselves. It was obvious that you couldn't make it together. And then there is the child still sitting there trying to figure out, okay, well, what are you two fools going to do about bettering my life? Which is a question that goes unanswered by many, because nobody wants to take the responsibility and take ownership for whatever role they have. And anytime a relationship fails, both parties have a role in it. But that is a whole nother discussion that we're not going to have today, because today is International Men's Day, and I want to focus on the mental, the psychological well-being of the black male. Because all of this propaganda is in place for a reason. All these things establish within the individual some level of discontent, some level of contention, some level of discomfort, some level of dis-ease. And if you put all of these things together, what you have is a massive amount of stress. And as this show goes on, I'm going to talk more about stress and the impact that it has on an individual, why we have some of the results we have today. But I want to talk about what we do as individuals, as parents, as caretakers, as family members, as peers, some of the things that we do that increase the level of stress upon the individual as well, especially the child. I can tell you the level of stress that was put upon me in my mother's womb when my parents were going through their domestic issues, their physical conflicts, their physical confrontations that went on between them. The level of stress that it put on the mother was put upon the child, me. And then when I come out after being inside and dealing with that, I come out as a child and have to deal with that in their environment. And regardless at what point they separated, the residue of that relationship, the residue of that conflict and confrontation still was upon my mother, and it was still put upon me. And as I continued to age, it was still things that came from the two of them in regards to, you know, their separation that still was placed upon me, which again increased my stress level. My stress level. There also are some things that are said to males. There were things that I was told, things that were said to me that nobody really focused on. It was more of you following someone else's lead, like boys don't cry. What sense does that make? Just think about the statement. Why do boys not cry? Boys and girls both hurt. Human beings get hurt. If I kicked you in the leg with a pair of Timberlands on, wouldn't that not hurt you? So why would you not cry? So let's talk about that one example for a minute. You just got kicked. You're in pain. You're told to suck it up. Now, the human being has a natural fight or flight reaction when placed in certain positions. That is a position of fight or flight. This person just kicked me. Intentional or unintentional, I am in pain. The first thing I want to do is react to what? The deliverer of the pain or the pain itself? It all depends on the circumstance. Because if I perceive the deliverer of that pain as being my enemy, then my fight or flight is to do what? To fight that person. If I find that the person in front of me who is the deliverer of that pain is larger than me or possesses something that can overwhelm me or even take my life, then the flight aspect kicks in. But when you sit down and you tell me repeatedly not to cry, you are in essence telling me to withhold that which the body naturally reacts to on its own. So you're taking me out of a natural response to an unnatural condition. This is what you're doing. When you sit down and you tell me to not act naturally, you are telling me in fact to resist, to reject that which is already within me, that which God has put in me. So it is an innate reaction, an innate response to an environmental stress. So if you tell me this over and over and over and over again, and every time I'm hurt, the first thing I do is think of what you have told me, because I trust and value what you are telling me, because you're an adult. You're supposed to be my guide. You're supposed to be my direction. So I have faith in what it is that you tell me. I don't question it. I don't know to question it as a child. I just begin to do it. So now you are taking me out of a natural condition. And you don't even realize it. But you're conditioning me to deal with what you say, to deal with a society that is evil, that is uncaring, that can be violent even. And that's what you're preparing me for. You're not preparing me for life. You're preparing me for an environment of suffering. That's what you're preparing me for. This is what happens in the world we live in. These things happen. People take advantage of you. People do things to you that bring harm to you. And this is what I need to prepare you for. See, we're not preparing our young males to be loving and caring and nurturing. Something else that we come with already at birth. What you are doing, you are stripping the young male of his natural abilities to engage the rest of the world in a manner that is not in alignment, right? That is not in alignment with our condition. You are changing the condition of the male. You are teaching the male to be something God did not intend for him to be. If you think about the story of David, how while everyone else, all the other soldiers were putting on all this armor, they were getting all these knives and sharpening their swords, and they were getting all these other weaponries together, while David didn't do any of that. They were laughing at David, little scrawny little guy. David, you need to put something on you. Protect yourself from all of this. We're going into battle. Why aren't you? And no, David didn't need all of that. David went and found some stones, some polished stones, because David knew what he needed to do. He didn't need all of that. Not only did he have the skill that God had provided him with, but he also believed and he had faith. See, we've taken that away from our little boys. We've taken away faith. Once we start stripping our young boys of faith, then they start relying upon brute brawn. They start relying upon their thinking. They start relying upon things outside of them that can't protect them for real from the elements that they're going to be subjected to in this life. Period. That's all you're doing. We're not conditioning our young males to be God-fearing young boys and coming into manhood. We're not teaching them that. We're teaching them to survive in an environment which we have conditioned ourselves to believe cannot be overcome with anything other than violence. That's what we're teaching our young males. We're teaching our males to be violent. And then when they're violent with us, we don't understand why. We say we don't understand why, but that's just another way of us failing to take responsibility for what it is that we have conditioned. We've created this, and we don't want to take ownership for it. We don't want to take ownership for it. This whole concept of man up. Now this is something that is pushed And this is something that really came from the street. This is really something that came from the bar stool. Yo, man up, go ahead, drink that thing. Yo, man up, go ahead and hit that. It's always there's this whole man up. What does man up mean? It's sick, it's stupid. I'm sick of hearing it. Stop using it. Because it doesn't make any sense. Because you're telling somebody to come out of a natural condition into an unnatural condition to appease you so you can accept them so they can feel accepted. Every human being wants to feel accepted. Every human being wants to be accepted. So when you're using terms like man up, you're forcing somebody to do something and to validate their manhood in some sick way that you think is more acceptable. So now you've created some sick, distorted, twisted rites of passage for males. Manning up has nothing to do with anything. Either I want to do it or I don't want to do it. It has nothing to do with my masculinity. Nothing. Nothing. See, we're taking street established terms and behaviors and integrating them into parenthood. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. And then you wonder why you have what you have on your hands. Why now your son thinks he can beat you. And you ask yourself the question, well, why does he think that he can? Because you just groomed him that way. You groomed him that way. So this is your own Frankenstein monster of a sort that you've created. Now you want to have him put away because you can't handle what you've created. And what you've created is a clone of yourself. So you're looking at your own image. You're looking at your own image. And you don't like what you see. You don't like what you see. You want to tell the young males that showing emotions is a sign of weakness. Well, since when? Since when? Since when? And where's the rationale in that? That doesn't make sense. To tell me that when I show emotions that I appear weak. Appear weak to who? To who? Elements in our environments that seek to take advantage of us? That's their agenda. They look for signs of weaknesses. What is a sign of strength? A stroll? A toothpick in my mouth? My hat cocked to the right? A 9mm sitting on my lap? What makes me appear strong? And why do I need to appear strong? And what is strong? Think about it. We can look at women, black women especially, and say how strong they are, and we don't see them, carrying around 45-pound dumbbells in their hands. We don't see them, doing laborious things that we as males perceive as being signs of strength. We don't see them doing those things, but yet and still we can call a black woman strong. We can say black women are strong because they have given birth to our children, but all black women haven't given birth. So what makes that black woman strong? It hasn't given birth. There are black women who have supported black men, poorly educated, poorly groomed, poorly acting black men. So we call black women strong because they do that. So what about the black men who turn around and raise their children independent of their mother? Black men who turn around and do all of those things that you say are signs of strength for the black woman, but a black man does that, and that's not a strong black man. So a strong black man has to do what? Have many women? Be able to guzzle down a fifth of liquor? What is the sign of a strong black man? And where did you get that interpretation from? You didn't get that from the pulpit. You didn't get that from the pastor. You didn't get that from the minister. You didn't get that from the priest. You didn't get that from the Bible, the Quran, the Torah. Where did you get that from? This rhetoric that you're spewing out of your mouth, that you're putting upon that young male who is listening to you, who is entrusting that the information that you're giving to him is valuable information that he's going to use in his life to be fruitful. Where is it? Show me where that's written. This is your own idealistic way of living that you're putting upon your child and other males. You call yourself mentoring? You're not mentoring when you sit down and tell somebody that your way of life is the right way of life when you haven't even come up with a clear image of what a man is. We say that a woman can't raise a boy to be a man. That's true. Why can't she? Because she's not a man. Because she doesn't understand what it's like to be a man. So she's only teaching a boy how to be a good person. Well, you're not teaching as a man. You're not teaching that boy how to be a good man. You're teaching him how to be the kind of man you think that he should be because of the kind of man that you are. Now looking at how you became who you are and by what means and what avenues you have taken to become who you are in the internal condition that you have right now that is in turmoil, that is unresolved, it's unsettled because you haven't dealt with some of the things from your own past which makes you who you are today. You think because you put on an Armani suit that changed your condition. No, it didn't. You think that because you can rub elbows with the so-called movers and shakers that you have arrived, but you haven't. Because at the end of the day, when they're done with you and when you're done with yourself and you're sitting down on the edge of your bed, you're still trying to figure out how the hell you got there and what is going on with you. You don't talk about the drinks that you take all night long by yourself in the dark. We're talking about after you leave the bar. We're talking about that bottle that you have in the cabinet that you're knocking down every day. We're talking about the medication that you're taking on a regular basis. We're talking about your high blood pressure. We're talking about all those conditions that have happened to you as a result of the stress from your own life that continues to be unresolved, which still leaves you sick at the end of the day, and now you're passing it on to your child. You keeping up, aren't you? I hope so, because I'm just getting started. But it's these kind of things that we say to our young men. These are the kind of things we say to our young men that have created what we have in our hands today. Stress is a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. See, the system has already, listen, we have a system that uses every element of psychology, sociology, capitalism, and everything else that you can think of. People have sat down with all these so-called brilliant minds. This is brilliance. It is, to control people in the way that they do. But they've sat down and used all aspects of science, these different sciences, to come up with a proven plan to control people, to control people's thinking, to control people's fears, to control illness, to control virus, to control disease within one human being. Within one human being. Let me read to you the definition from Wikipedia of stress. Physiological or biological stress is an organism's response to a stressor, such as an environmental condition or a stimulus. Stress is a body's method of reacting to a challenge. According to the stressful event, the body's way to respond to stress is by sympathetic nervous system activation, which results in the fight or flight response, which I already been talking about. The body cannot keep this state for long periods of time. Afterwards, the parasympathetic system returns the body's physiological condition to normal. That's after the stressful event. Now, in humans, stress typically describes a negative condition or a positive condition that can have an impact on a person's mental and physical well-being. So, and it goes on to talk about stress disturbing equilibrium, hormones, and all those other things, but I want to go right to what it talks about in regards to the effect on the brain. The brain plays a critical role in the body's perception of and response to stress. However, pinpointing exactly what regions of the brain are responsible for particular aspects of a stress response is difficult and often unclear. There are areas of the brain which are responsible for helping you to understand. That means a cognitive reaction to the stress at hand. At some point in time, you begin to get blocks in your brain where you start shutting down. Recalling events is difficult. Memory lapses happen. Comprehension becomes clouded. The ability to appropriately respond to something gets affected. There are so many things that happen within the brain that when in stressful situations that we think that we're acting off of, we're having an emotional reaction to something. The emotional reaction that is usually one that causes a person to fight is usually because you just can't get it together mentally, that you can't wrap your head around what's going on to be able to intellectually, appropriately react to the situation by removing yourself from it, or by de-escalating the situation, or making some kind of rational decision. Is to the point where you just kind of are acting off of just the innate fight or flight. You're just acting off of it. There's no cognition attached to it. You're just reacting, and that's what happens. And this is why the system has designed our society the way it has, where we have the projects, we have the low-income people, we have the so-called middle-class people, we have the so-called upper-class people. We have all these people who have been divided geographically. Then sometimes they have to be integrated with one another. But most importantly, you have to understand that when you have environments where there's nothing but bars and clubs and drugs and violence and all those things going on all the time, they're very stressful environments. And no matter how hard you try, you get sucked right back into not necessarily the crowd, but you still are part of the environment, and it begins to weigh you down because you get sick of hearing the gunshots at night. You get sick and tired of seeing the police putting the tape up. You get sick and tired of seeing white, blood-stained sheets laying on the ground because someone else has gotten murdered, just like what they're about to have in Ferguson. Ferguson is going to need more than Iyanla Van Zant coming down there talking to her. This is a job so immaculate that's happening right now in Ferguson that you need to send teams of psychologists and psychiatrists down there to help these families, because this is something that you can't bounce back from. You never bounce back from it. It stays within you forever. Forever. It stays within you. But most of us have grown up in environments, if not environments that were directly affected by violence. We're exposed to the media, and the media continues to put those things on television, so you sit there and you watch it, and fear and anxiety begins to envelope you, and that's all you think about. You think about, when I go downtown, is there going to be a flash mob? Is somebody going to run up into the school and start shooting up the school? Somebody going to run into the movie and shooting up the movie? Where will my children go to school? Will my children ever be safe? Will I ever be safe? These things just go on and on and on and on and on. And for the black male, especially the young black male, we have so many things that we have to protect them from, that we're spending so much time trying to protect ourselves, or trying to be a part of, other groups and other things, that we're missing the whole piece here. And the whole piece is that we are all at risk, and we need to save the babies. And we're not saving the babies. We're not saving the babies. See, we're talking about International Men's Day. So what we should be looking at is what's happening in other countries where they are protecting their babies. We should be looking at other countries and trying to understand how it is that they are keeping their families intact, regardless of divorce. Divorce doesn't just happen in the black family. Parental separation is just not in the black family. Father absenteeism is not just in the black family. All these things are worldwide. This thing is international. So when we look at other groups of people and we look at what's happening right here in America and how we continue to fall upon unresolved with our whole family system, the whole judicial system, the whole social services system, all of this stuff is connected. That's why it's called the system. But when we look at the system right here in America, specifically the system in Pennsylvania, and we look at it and compare it to other, listen, there are countries that don't even have a system, and they're keeping their families together. They're keeping their families together. They're producing productive members of society with their males. Their males are taking care of their responsibilities. They're going out and they're hunting. They're bringing back food for their families. They're spending time with their families. There's no child support court. There's no court order, you know, that's talking about how much time you get for visitation. There's none of those things. We're privileged to have those kind of things in our society, but yet and still, we're still not making it work. We have a so-called system that's supposed to help us with our families, and that's not even working. But yet and still, we can have countries that don't have anything as complex and complicated as the social and human services system that we have right here in America, right here in Philadelphia. We have all that at disposal, and still our families are failing. Still our families are failing. We have all these politicians who are in office, black politicians. Again, I'm going to stay on that, because you have the power to bring about change in our communities, and you fail to do that. You fail to bring any. I listen to things that go into the Senate floor. I listen to things that go to Congress. I have yet to hear any of these things that I'm talking about, go across the floor. Never. We keep riding on how our predecessors died for our right to vote, but you're leaving something real important now. You're also failing to talk about those who died, right, for the right for us to be able to be in office. You don't talk about that. There's no discussion about that. See, you want to keep focused on something else. So you're just as much of a detriment to your own people when you don't even take and put things that are necessary for the growth and development of the black community onto the Senate floor. Bring it in the forefront of Congress. You're just as guilty. You're just as guilty. Where y'all at in Ferguson? You have a black state trooper and you have the Congressman Lewis, who is out there. Where's everybody else at? Where? When do you begin to establish a template of freedom? When? Ferguson should be crawling with every black politician, from the councilman to the state representatives to senators. Y'all should all be down there, but you're not going to be down there because you can't be down there. Why? Why? Because you're part of the good old boys club. But mark my word, let something happen outside of the black community that affects other groups of people and watch them show up. See, we don't have any courage anymore. And again, that's something else that our youth are watching. They're watching how weak we are as men of the community. We're more concerned with being part of the good old boys club, right, than meeting the needs of our community. And even our own family members are suffering. So when we start talking about manhood, we need to first start looking at ourselves, looking at our own condition, our ill condition, because we are ill conditioned, and we don't want to accept that fact. We don't want to accept that fact. We have established absolutely nothing for our young men. Nothing. We haven't worked together to establish anything for our men coming out of state correctional institutions. We have established nothing for our men coming out of county prisons. We've established nothing for them. Nothing. Nothing. All of our black men coming out of prison, all these black politicians that we have, what has changed about our judicial system? What has changed about this whole prison pipeline thing? What has changed about it? Nothing. I voted for you guys. I cast my vote. Check the records. I cast my vote. What are you doing? What are you doing to benefit the black community? When you look all around the world, when you have men of color who are going out there droves, look at Africa. When all those things, when they were treating those miners terribly, and they were putting poor conditions out there for those miners, thousands hit the street. Thousands. You couldn't even see the end of those who were involved in the protest. You couldn't even see the end. And look at us. We go out there, school's closing. We see about 20, 30 people out there. But how many of our children are in these schools? We see all the other things that take place in the city of Philadelphia. All the things that are closing down. All the things that are put upon people of color. Where are all the black politicians? Men. Where are the black men? Where are the fathers? Where are the uncles? Where are the cousins, the nephews, the brothers? Outside protesting outside these politicians' offices. None of them are doing it. You're not doing it. Why? Because you're too busy trying to get a favor for yourself. You're too busy trying to get somebody to do something for you, so you can come up a little bit. Where's the outrage? Every other group around us, there are men of color outside of the United States who are getting things done. Even though they're not getting anything, they're starving. They're starving to death. Disease is running rampant in their countries. But they still keep their families together. They're still helping their brothers out. Why are we not doing that here in America? What's happening in America? And I'm not telling you that other countries don't have some of the same things that we have going on. Because we're killing each other here in America. They're killing each other abroad. But there are a lot of systems. There are a lot of social systems. Either ones that are structured through the government or ones within the tribe. One within that particular civilization that clearly shows that this is a successful way to bring about change within the black community. It's a reality. But it begins with us. It begins with the black male, the adult black male, who has the responsibility of emulating some kind of character, some positive character, whether it be the character of Muhammad, whether it be the character of Jesus, whether it be the character of Moses, whoever it is. Where is that character being emulated in your condition and being relayed to your child? Where is it? Where? So stop professing all this, I'm Muslim, I'm Christian, I'm Jew, and I'm all this, that, and the other. You're a fool. Because if you're not taking that which you're learning, that which you should be reading about, and not regurgitating just what somebody said, if you're not reading it and you're not transcribing that into, a message to others that you can bring to life, you're a waste of time. And I'm not trying to make this about religion. What I am making it about, we have all these holy rollers, all these damn people running around in our society professing all this good Gucci stuff, and you're killing everybody along the way with the rhetoric that's just spewing out of your mouth. You're falling in alignment with the very propaganda that's been put out that has already divided us. You're doing the same exact thing. You're doing the same exact thing. I'm Christian. I don't mess around with no Muslims because y'all about this. This. You don't know a damn thing about a Muslim. And the same thing with the Muslims have so much to say about the Christians. You got all these things to say about the Christian, but if you knew anything about the Quran, anything about what you're practicing, I don't understand. Where are you getting that from? Where are you getting that from? You show me in the Quran where it bashes Christianity, where it bashes Judaism. Show me where it's written. Show me where it's written. Because the Quran clearly states that I believe in Allah, His messengers, His books, His angels. What are His books? We're taught what His books are. So all this divide we keep running around here, we look like fools. We look like fools. Period. There's nothing in any of these books that you read that tells you that you need to treat people in a manner that we do. You don't sway from justice. You don't sway from right living because somebody else is doing that. And when you start following in alignment with people who are dividing us, you're responsible too. You're responsible too. When you follow that kind of leadership, you're responsible too. You're responsible for reading that book. You're responsible for adhering to that which God has said that you need to adhere to. You're responsible for all that, not your friends, not your children. You're responsible. So you need to look at the leadership you're following. I'd rather sit home by myself and read my Quran and learn from it and internalize it and treat people accordingly than sit around a bunch of damn people, a bunch of hypocrites, or a bunch of people who are ostracizing others because of their own selfish needs, thinking, and whatever it is that's going on with their twisted thinking. I don't need to be a part of that. Because you turn around and you put a suit on, it didn't mean that you arrived. And I said this to a brother recently, you know, I was becoming a part of a collaboration, and I was telling him, listen, I've been to several of these meetings, and when you go in there, the folks in there treat you like, well, I don't know you, I'm not extending myself to you, well, you got to come to me, well, I'm the committee, I'm the subcommittee chair, whatever it is, or, you know, the whole arrogant attitude. Arrogance is the greatest killer of all of us. But I was telling him how, like, if you're not a part of that clique, you know, you won't even get any acknowledgement. People will talk right past you like you don't even sit there. And his response was, I hope what you saw was familiarity. Come on, let's be real. See, that's the problem. We don't want to have real rap about our conduct. Now we're all up in arms about this recent revelation about Bill Cosby. These allegations made against him for, you know, some sexual related assaults. We're all up in arms about a whole lot of things, but the reality of it is, all of us are human beings. All of us are going to fall short. All of us are going to have some punishment while in the grave, and we just need to deal with that. We need to deal with that. But we need to stop bashing each other as brothers. I'm your brother if I'm Christian, but if I'm not Christian, I'm Muslim, I'm not your brother, and vice versa. I'm not your brother because I'm Muslim and you're Christian, that makes you not my brother. You know how stupid you sound? You know how stupid you look in front of others making those kind of comments, all in the name of? You sound real stupid. I'm just calling it what it is. See, I'm not shook by your affiliation with law enforcement or with some so-called high power, you know, officials. I don't give a damn who you are. You're a debt as a black man. If you are not making a contribution to bring about a positive change within our communities, then the hell with you. And if you want to make some noise, bring it, because I'm okay with that too. But at the end of the day, when the news comes on and the media does what it does best by portraying images, negative images of our black males killing each other in the street, and then want to interview an adult black male who will stand there and say, and I'm talking about a mayor, the mayor of Philadelphia, I'm talking about the police commissioner, I'm talking about all of y'all officials in Philadelphia who want to stand there and talk all this old nonsense about locking people up, making people pay, suffering people. You're not giving anything back into the community. That's not a role you should be playing as a black man. I understand that there are laws. I understand that there's things that happen that we need to deal with. Deal with those people. But don't stand in front of a predominantly black community and say to them what you're going to do to their black males. Because you're no better than anyone else who means us harm. What have you put in the city of Philadelphia to help? You think because you signed some kind of pledge, because you signed some kind of document that welcomes International Men's Day, or that, no, you're still not doing anything. What are you doing? What are you doing? Think about it. You brought the Pope to Philadelphia. The Pope. What does the Pope do for black people? Period. When you look at blacks in relationship between Catholicism and how blacks have been treated in the Catholic Church. Come on. Who are you bringing to Philadelphia to help rise up the black male? Think about it. Think about it. Minister Louis Farrakhan brought over 2 million black men sober to the steps of Washington from all over the world. But you won't bring Minister Farrakhan here? Because you ascribe to the beliefs and the teachings of Catholicism? Or help me out here. So are you about your people? Or are you about your money? Because I haven't seen anything worthwhile happening in the city of Philadelphia that has benefited the black community at all. Again, I'll say, the only thing we seem to be good for is paint and trees. Paint for the curbs and addresses, and trees. Trees that grow in front of the house that the homeowner is responsible for when it goes down there and wraps around the water pipes and strangles the pipes, or when the curb gets pushed up from the tree in any capacity. The homeowner is responsible for that. The very home that you can come and kick the door in any time you feel like it and drag the family out of the house kicking and screaming unapologetically, even if that is the wrong house. So you tell me. So is that who we've become as black men? Is that what has come down to? That it's a dog-eat-dog world? That it's every man for himself? That we sit back and don't take responsibility for the records that we left behind? I know I set the tone for a lot of these black males who came up watching me out there slinging drugs and doing what it is that I was doing. I know I set that tone. I take ownership for that, so I have to take responsibility and making some kind of amends, you know, to my community by staying actively involved in some kind of change for others. What are you doing? You still sitting home complaining? This is International Men's Day. What did you do in celebrating manhood? What did you sit down and reflect on as a man? What are you going to bring to the table to make a change within the black community? What are you doing to help conditions for men of color? Think about it. Nothing. 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 We're so up in arms about the House being Republican control now. Well, I mean, look at the conditions that Democrats have been in control. Really? What? Conditions aren't they're not appealing at all. Nothing has changed. The same things. We're still every so often having to vote on this voting right, this voting act, so blacks can continue. But that should have been eliminated a long time ago. Why is it still there? Why are we voting on it again? We got the ability to vote. They had to vote on it again to give us the ability to vote again. Why is it still in existence? Why? I'm sorry. I still don't see where these so-called black organizations that represent the betterment, the advancement of us as a people. I don't see where you're doing anything. I don't see that. You show up because there's a race-related or a racial event, so you go show up. We're here. This is who we are. And this is what we're going to do. We need an organization to do that now. The same organization that voted on what we should be called as a people is the same organization that has failed to do much of any changing whatsoever in black America. And we keep having these. Listen, I'll get started, and that's not even. Listen, as black men, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to change the conditions of our communities. But it starts in your home. It starts in your home. It starts with how you talk to your woman. It starts with how you communicate with the mother of your child if they're not living with you, if they're living with you. It starts there. It starts in the kind of dialogue that you begin to have with your family members. It starts with you educating your family members, not just on things in regards to a system that is designed to destroy the black male, but things that are necessary for the black male to be strong. But purging himself of hurt and pain is important. Being nurturing and caring and loving is important. Why? Because when he, as a black male, it gets that instilled within him from his parents, all it does is it somewhat waters that which God has put into him, and it makes him grow. That's what makes him a strong man, because now he can lead his family. Because not only does he know how to make love to his woman, he knows how to love her the way she needs to be loved. He knows how to listen to her when she needs to be listened to. He knows how to be quiet and just let things take the course, as opposed to forcing things to take course. He knows how to speak to her and to guide her toward a direction that makes, that family life whole. He knows how to talk to his children and nurture his children and groom and guide his children in a way that makes them good people. Good people. As a man, and you being an image, that image is enough for him to go from being a good person to being a good man. We're in a system that clearly understands what it means to control a people. We have to stop allowing ourselves to be controlled. We have to learn how to start removing stressful events from our lives. And that comes from just like, just sitting down and finding some resolve of various situations. Domestic violence is not an incident. Domestic violence is not an incident, and we need to stop saying that. Domestic violence is something that develops over a period of time within the individual. Within the individual. When you teach a person not to express themselves, when you teach a person not to cry, when you tell a person when they're hurt, to suck it up, when you tell them to man up and things like that, that is you creating within that individual hostilities. That's where domestic violence lies. See, you can remove both partners, or remove the perpetrator from the home, or remove the victim from the home. You still don't change domestic violence. You still don't change domestic violence. Because once a person has been victimized, they now become a victimizer. They become a perpetrator of those very same things upon somebody else. So when we keep saying, well, Joe Splivengate was arrested for domestic violence. No, Joe Splivengate wasn't arrested for domestic violence. Joe Splivengate violated the law. He put his hands on somebody. But when we talk about domestic violence, we're talking about conditioning over a period of time that has taught one to believe that it's okay to hit, that is okay to not express your feelings, that it's okay that you explode, because that's how you deal with everything. Listen, just hitting back. Just hitting back. Fight or flight kicks in automatically. And you take the whole concept of fight or flight along with suppressed emotions and all kind of hurts and pains, throughout the person's life. And you take all that and put that together. That's a walking time bomb. So domestic violence is not an incident. Domestic violence is a condition. So when you start treating somebody for domestic violence, you need to treat them based on historics, based on their upbringing, based on what information that they were given throughout the course of their lives, because domestic violence is not an incident. So to just kind of wrap up today's show, there's a lot that we can learn from one another. There are others, males, whites, Latinos, Asian, and a host of others who can help us as men get outside of the box and learn how to be more efficient to our children. And I have a lot of focus here on our children, but we need to first understand that if we don't change our own conditioning, right, if we don't begin to think differently, that we're going to still have the same outcomes. It's no secret that the conditions that you find mostly amongst blacks, the esophageal cancers, the ulcers, the high blood pressure, the anxiety disorders, the depressive disorders, the schizoaffective disorders, you know, these various disorders. And it's no secret that environmental conditions, be it upon the parents of the child or upon the child themselves, these things didn't just happen. So we live in a society that has full control over our lives. But most importantly, we have full control over our lives more than anything or anyone else. What we eat, how we eat it, we can grow our own if we choose to. We can change our diet entirely. But we have full control over how we're reacting to things in our world, how we deal with stress, how we deal with relationships. We have full control over those things. So it's things that we can do to lessen the stressors within our lives and make our lives a lot easier. You know, like saying no to certain things that are asked of you. You know, you don't always have to work overtime. If you're in a position where you have to work overtime and that stresses you out, then maybe you need to change your lifestyle. Maybe you need to not have to always go out and buy $600, $700, $800 suits or $1,000 suits, $300, $400 shoes. Maybe you need to look at those kind of things, because if you're working more than you're with your family, then it's just a matter of time before you lose your family, or your family loses you. If you're in a relationship that you hate coming home at the end of the day, get out of the relationship. You know, if the car payment is killing you, get a smaller car. You know, get a less expensive car. If the weather, if you're just sick of cold weather like I am, listen, I'm planning to move to Florida. There's so many things you can do to begin to change. But see, our children aren't afforded that. Our children aren't afforded that. Our children can't just up and make those kind of decisions to roll out. So that means that we have to make sure that we're equipping them to be able to do that when the time does come. When the time does come. But I'll say this in closing, that it is important that we learn how to talk to each other. It is important that we learn how to pull our brother under our wing. It is important that we take a position of being our brother's keeper, because we are our brother's keeper. In the end, don't think that you're going to walk through those pearly gates when you've done absolutely nothing. Nothing in the way of servitude here on earth in this life. Period. And if you're not going to help, move the hell out of the way, because those of us who are working don't need you to be in our way. But this is International Men's Day. Celebrate it, embrace it, and peace and blessings to all you men out there. Thank you.